In this project, our objective is to use the block command to transform group of objects into one object. What we do that, the reason we do that, we have most often in the applications, the symbols that we have to use on over and over. So rather than creating each one individually, we create only once and we can save and break them as a block. There are two commands you're going to explore on this first assignment. One is block and one is insert. Let's begin loading your template. Once you have your template already downloaded in your own folder, open AutoCAD and start with this template that you have created before. And I have also a copy of that available for you in this assignment. Okay, these are a bunch of images that I have given you with dimensions. However, dimensions are not required for your final presentation. These are only for you to give you some sense of measuring as a proportion. So these symbols are not detailed drawings. They don't have to be that size exactly, but these are pretty much close to that standard size, usually symbols that in drafting recommendations. And that's what I have given you. You could use something a little bit closer to that one by typing, or you can use snap and grid by setting snap and grid to 0.1 and then puts you in the decimal format. So let's begin creating some of those symbols. I have used already my template, and in this template, you make sure that you're in model, not paper space or layout mode. So we have explored this option in previous class. So hopefully most of you remember that. Refresh your memory on that. The differences between layout mode and model mode. In model we create, in layout we print. So make sure that if you open the template and shows you're in the layout mode, switch back to the model. Okay, so in this case, make sure that your limits it's already set, but your grid and snap and grid are set to 0.1. That gives you a little bit more convenient and efficient way to draw these figures. In this case, I have already created one. I'm going to just erase that and start over another one. So I'm beginning with the line command, but before that, I need to make sure that my grid snap and also snap space is set to be 0.1. Okay, by typing grid, notice that you have spacing here, grid spacing. Right now, specify the grid spacing. Right now shows 0, 0. I'm going to type 0.1. Then I type snap, also shows 0.1. And probably they're so small on the screen, just zoom in. In the corner of this, around here, I will use the line command and start from a point. It's something similar to what you see on that one here. I will go 2 grid up and 2 grids down from the center point here. Something close to basically I have now zoomed. So by setting this snap and grid, I don't have to sit down and type those. It's much faster to create them. All right. So once you, okay, I have one more maybe, would be a good idea. Okay, then the last one is going to be stuff in here. Okay. Okay, that's one symbol that I created. Now, your command that you are going to learn in this one is using the block. The block you can type, also you can have from the pull down menu. Right now I don't have my pull down menu. I'd like to have another pull down menu. If you remember in 81 class, I asked everyone to download this space if I have it still available here. Show menu bar. This is good tool to have because it gives you a lot of more option under this draw tools and other tools. And so under the draw tools, you have that block. You can always type this. Also, there are other ways to access this in AutoCAD. As you know, always you can type the command, and under the block, I'm going to say make. Another alternative is just type blocks or block. No matter how you access the command in AutoCAD, always is going to pop up this menu. It says block definition. Name, I'm going to name this one resistor. Because I do have one in this file, I'm going to call resistor 1. You don't need to type that because I have already one created resistor here. Resistor 1. And then I'm going to select on screen option. Here you're going to say pick point. And then select this left end. So that defines wherever you bring it in, it's going to be always on that. That's the starting point or insertion point. And next option is objects. Under the objects, select objects. There's a pick point again. Little green button here. You press and hold, and then select everything using the Windows crossing or Windows option selection. Let's go a bit faster here and select everything within the Windows. After that, press Enter key. Here, when you select, it's going to show you like 10 found. So that means you've selected all the objects. Their color turns blue, so you know you have selected. And now say OK. What happened now? You created that as a symbol. Let's create another one. Let's go to this diode one. I'm going to use the line command. Select the point. Again, location is not important right now. We're creating any place. And then I'm going to create just a one line. Okay, I used the line tool for this one, but I could have used the polyline because there is an arrow that I need to create. So I'm going to press Escape key and begin with the polyline. So polyline gives you a better option. Under the polyline, pick a point. You want to go to about 0.5. So 0.5, I can type that or I can read my, see that jumps every 0.1, so exactly 0.5 I click. Now I'm going to change that thickness of this polyline by typing W for width or selecting from the menu here. And I'm going to give that one to something approximately, I'm going to type this one, starting from, shows specify starting width for polyline. You have used the polyline in the previous class. So to refresh your memory, remember the polyline asks for 2 width. So the first one is starting with, in this case, this is wider. So I'm going to go say 0.05. And then press enter. It's going to ask you ending with 0. So that gives me something to work with. So now next one, I just pick that one. I'm going to go also type 0.05. So this way is it some kind of square shape rather than equilateral triangle rather than what we call isosceles. So that's very similar to that. So after that, I go to another 0.5 and stop there. Okay. So that pretty much Okay, the length of that line is not that crucial. I used a little bit shorter than that, but let me just go ahead and extend that a little bit more. It doesn't really matter because at the time you're going to use the lines to connect them. Okay, so that we will call them diet. So I'm going to repeat this block command again one more time. Block. Start again naming this one diode. And pick point button to select the insertion point, which is again left side. And select object. Everything selected. And OK. Okay, this is how we create the blocks. Let's do one more time for that transistor. Maybe you would have some questions. Circle. I type circle, so it's going to ask me center point and radius. In this case, radius, I'm going to type, if diameter is 0.63, we are going to say 0.6. That approximately is good enough. So then I'm going to say 0.3, 0.31, okay, to be closer. Okay, so that is the circle I drew with that diameter. And I'm going to draw a line from the center to the left, approximately actually given 0.6, so I'm going to type 0.6. And I have one line is here going up. The copy that you have is a little bit not equally shown, but I'm going to just try to do this one equally symmetrical using this snap. And then one line goes in angle up. So this one I need to type. That's the best way to do. You learned coordinate system in the previous class by typing at sign, relative, going to some distance. I'm going to use just approximation here. It's about maybe 1. Angle sign or tab key. And then I'm going to go from X direction to half of the 85, which would be 42.5 angle. 4.5. Okay. I type 1 distance with the angle of 42.5. That gives me pretty long, but I just use that on purpose to show. Basically, that line doesn't start exactly from the center, so I need to move that. Basically, move this point to this point here. Okay, that's the place it starts. And we can mirror this to other side. That would be good to have. So go to the modify. You can type always these commands, but this time I'm using the mirror here from pull down menu. Again, if you don't have this pull down menu, the little small arrow here, you can click on that and show menu bar is useful, or you can always type. And there are other tools also you have here. You can select any way you want to select the mirror. Okay, what happened to my mirror? Okay, modify mirror. Okay, I'm going to select this one, press enter, pick the point 1, another point 2, somewhere, make sure it's a horizontal line, or you can pick the end of this line, and then enter key to finish. Okay, now I have that line. I need to have a little arrow on this one. I can use the polyline, same polyline I used before. This one pretty much same size I will use. And I use this line as a guide. So I go to polyline. This time I'm typing from the keyboard. And turn my snap off. So this tries to jump into those grid points. Press F9 key to snap off. And then hold the shift, right click. select nearest, pick approximate point here somewhere. Actually, I can go from here exactly, actually, intersection. And this one starts from 0 because I'm going opposite direction. So starting with 0, going to 0.04 on this one would be good, just approximation. And then go to nearest, make sure that pick the line and stay on that line. Okay, that's pretty good there. Now, that extra spacing, if I use offset command, O for offset, 0.4, select this line, and select the line. Okay, that gives me something to work with. Extending. Oops. I did accidentally jump here. Okay, now I can trim. Define my cutting edge, or I can just probably just not worry about that. Okay. Pretty much, I think that's all you need to have for transistor. Basically done. Okay, let's make it one more block. This time we're going to call this one transistor. And peak point for insertion would be end of this one. Connect to end and select object, select everything. Press enter to selection, end the selection, and transistor name, pick the point already, select the object, and OK. Okay, next step is to insert these blocks and create your drawing. So once you finished and everything under the 0 layer, don't forget that 0 layer, you are doing everything on the 0 layer, finish the rest of them. And if you want me to show you, there's another one. The connection is a small circle that's easy to draw. Terminal is another circle, a little bit larger than connections. And the ground. For ground, let me show you that how that can be created. Spacing between each one is 0.05. You can offset that. That offset would be a good choice on that one. Let's begin the line with the point. Snap is, make sure it's on. There are 0.4 down. I'm using the 4 grids to point down, and this one is also no dimensions given for this one. I'm just using the again another 0.4. Okay. Actually, just making one line would be better too, rather than 2 lines. Okay, according to that instruction, there is a 0.05 spacing between each one. I'm going to use the offset. It's the faster way to do that. You could use the array command, but 0.05. Select the side, select the side, and how many? I would say let's just go one more, couple more. Okay, now what I would do next, draw the line from this end to intersection here, or I have set to the 0.1. I think that's what, yeah, this is pretty good there. And okay, now we will use the trim. I could use the fence to finish one time, but you know how to use the trim best the way you can. It gives you some idea that helps to create this. Okay, this is our ground, so I will delete these lines as well. Erase those. Oops, did not get it. For some reason, my snap is not picking right. Okay. That completes our ground. And again, repeating one more time, block, define the insertion point or pick point. This one goes to this end. And some logical point always select. And then select everything. We call this one ground. And all objects are selected. And say OK. So now you would bring everything in on your actual drawing that you're going to print. And that is going to be this schematic one. So you are not completing everything except this drawing that you have here. This is the one you're going to complete. So basically that's what you would be doing. So you will be using the creating this similar shape. So you start with all these little circles that also each one is blocked. So you have those by using the insert command. Use the insert and bring it in. Let me just do a couple of them here. So after this one, you want to keep this under the zero layer. You don't have to erase them, and then go to switch to the object layer. It's important to separate those. I have made them both on the same color, but you can notice that the line thickness is different on that one, should be. So in the object layer, so I can start with freezing those by selecting the freeze button. So everything disappears from the screen, but it's still there. And then you can start with the line command. Snap should be on. Okay, let's just approximately here. I've started here. I will create the terminals later on, but this is the one I was going to show quickly, how you would be doing that. And then you have here just a line. And now let's bring the resistor in by using the insert block. Okay, let me just type that. Just block or insert. Okay, you can type your and then go to browse. Oops. Ground transistor diode. Let's say bring the resistor in. By the way, you can also bring these files into another file, new file. For that, we have to use different methods, but we get into later on. But for this assignment, all you need is to create that and start new layer, and then go to resistor, and then in this case, bring it in. Notice that as soon as I bring it in, see that point? That's our insertion point. So that takes care of that. So now, of course, I didn't change everything. This should have been rotated, correct? Because points down, right? Before I placed it here horizontally, I could have rotated, so I don't have to do extra work. So bring it in one more time, resistor, and then, or that's just a transistor, resistor, and then rotate. Insertion point, that should be rotation. I didn't select that one. Let's just go ahead one more time. Should be rotated automatically, but let me see what differences here is. But that can be rotated manually too if you want to. Yeah, okay, that should have been checked before. So if you have your ortho on, because it's 90 degrees, so that would help. So as long as they're all in the same position, you can have rotation on. Right now, of course, I use this starting from this end. I then measure that there's no measurement on the schematic. So as long as you need, you can extend that line, make it longer, and move it around so you have more space. So arrange that somehow that, again, there is no requirement for all dimensions except you're going to have those labels. The labels are text you will type. So I hope that helps. Um, so make this video a little bit short. I'm going to stop here and hopefully that would help you to start this drawing. So you can always, after create one, you can copy him or just repeat the same command. So you can bring it in and you notice that automatically points in that position as you bring it in. It's very simplified compared to what used to be more steps, but now you have. Okay, then after that, as in this case, we have like 4 of them. Of course, using the snap and that should. If you have multiple step, you can say multiple insert, but in this case, I have only a couple of them, so you can do individually. Okay, something I'm pressing wrong key here. Okay, and now I need a little bit more extra line. I can always extend that line. So your goal is to create this schematic that your final drawing is going to look like what you see on this assignment here. Okay, I hope that helps.